Hi, everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Wednesday, January the 25th, race number 4 at Gulfstream Park. We're going to kick off the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6 with a mile and a 16th turf event for Florida breds. It's a first-level allowance, $20,000 claiming option. Let's take a look at this field. Please scan the QR code for race of the day access on mobile. You've got a few class masters in here trying to find their best form, and you also have a speedball in the 7 Java Buzz who cut back in distance last time out, Mike, and couldn't make the lead. But if he shows the kind of speed he showed 2 starts back, he's going to be up front after the first half mile.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's the fastest horse in this race, and I don't even think it's particularly close, Dan. The race last time when they did cut him back to 6 at the end of November at Aqueduct, they just decided not to send him that day, and he tried to rate, and it wound up blowing up in their face because a 58-1 shot wired the field. When they did go 2 turns with him prior to that, boy, he was pretty hard to rate in that race. I wonder if he'll be able to settle this time if they do send him.
We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector, and no surprise, Java Buzz expected to make the lead. What could help is that his new stablemate, the number 8 Duvini, also trained by Kelly Breen, is expected to be second. It's hard to imagine those 2 horses battling it out. Duvini sat a little bit last time out, so it looks like the lead is Java Buzz's for the taking. And really, Mike, your point is very well taken. If he can rate, he'll be very tough, but it's a big if.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, I think there's, certainly some questions surrounding just how good Java Buzz is anyway, Dan. But, let's be realistic about this. Even the race 2 back when they went the mile and he was a little bit headstrong, he still ran a 90 buyer, finishing second.
The number 1, Chess's Dream, won the Grade 3 Kitten's Joy at Gulfstream Park back in 2021. He's now settled as sort of a mid-level claimer, and he was claimed out of his most recent start. We're going to take a look at that race. It's on the synthetic surface at Gulfstream, the Tapeta surface. And Chess's Dream in this race, you see in the yellow silks, is going to get up for third. It was a race won by a pretty solid horse. J.P. Hellish would come back to run second with an 81 buyer speed figure. Synthetic is not Chess's Dream's best surface, I don't believe, Mike. I think getting back to the turf off the claim will help.
I do too. I think he's just a better horse on the grass, and he has run some races in the past that I guess would give him, some kind of a chance in here, Dad, if he can pull the right trip. That is the last win there in September at Colonial. He got overall a trip that worked out for him. He really won that race very easily, but it was against 3 life claimers, and it feels like this is a tougher spot.
Speaking of tough spots, this is a big class test for the number 2, King Alfredo, who made his first start off the claim in a condition claimer. Last time out going 7.5. He pushed a pretty solid pace that day. A horse got loose on the lead. He was on a hard chase in second, and he kind of just flattened out and finished 4th. He's very lightly raced. He has upside. I think he can work out a trip in behind the speeds. Now he's got to take a step forward.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are true, and I really don't have anything to add to it. I didn't think he ran a particularly good race last time. You mentioned that he was up close. The horse that was on the lead finished 3rd at 6-1, and they both got steamrolled through the stretch by the 1-2 finishers. He was a huge price that day. I got to believe he's a big price again.
The number 3 is Jace's Solitude, who is second and might have been best in the 2019 Virginia Derby. Boy, was he compromised by a slow pace that day, and he ended up rallying, losing by a head. He now drops all the way down to 20 Florida breds. His most recent start was over a synthetic surface for $40,000. I don't think he likes the synth. He had a long layoff to deal with, Mike, and the question you have to ask yourself is he slowly racing himself back into shape and is just too good for these on his best day, or is it over?
Yeah, that is the real question. I guess, Dan, one way to look at it is first start for Brendan Walsh. He's in for 20. Maybe it's all over. That being said, I think it's pretty clear from looking at this race on paper, if he can still run, he's just going to win this race. And he did, run up, he was never a factor 2 starts back last time he was on turf, but he ran fine in there. And that field was light years better than this one.
And even his race at Kentucky Downs off the year plus layoff was not bad at all. He was finishing in a one paced manner, but only beaten 2 lengths by much better competition. The runner up of his most recent race came back, earned an 80 buyer, went second again at Turfway. Uncle Armando is the number 4, another horse moving from synthetic to turf, and another horse personally that I believe is better on the turf course. His last race, he sort of had a wide trip all the way around there, but he just didn't finish.
He didn't run well last time. 2 starts back also on the all-weather surface. He was, in the photo with Chess's Dream. I would argue, and even though Uncle Armando did break a little slowly there, I would argue Chess's Dream ran better than he did that day. And then, you go back and look at his turf races, and I would argue that Chess's Dream is probably a better turf horse than this horse is as well. I don't know. I guess that's debatable. He's not impossible in here. He goes out for really good connections. He's got some races that will give him a chance. I would want him to drift off the morning line if I was going to bet it.
The number 5 is Super Energized. And I think the way you're supposed to look at his last race off of a several month layoff sprinting on synthetic is they probably just use that race as a fitness builder to get him stretched back out around 2 turns. He seems better at these middle distances. That being said, how good is he? He got beat at the Meadowlands 2 starts back, and that quality of competition usually isn't very good. And there are a lot of seconds and thirds on his record.
That's what bothers me more than anything else about him. This is a horse where you have to go back to October of 2021 to get to his last win. That being said, he's run some good races since then. And I think it's at least worth noting that since he won that race, it's been basically all entry level allowance races for him. And I just think races that are a little too tough. He's actually run well in some of those spots. I did not think he was in necessarily over his head here, Dan, and I think he's going to be a good price.
The last time Drillomatic faced Florida breds on turf, he pulled off a big 18-1 upset victory around this time last year at Gulfstream Park. And his last race can be taken with a grain of salt. They ran him on the synth. It was off of a summer vacation. He didn't do much running that day. Maybe he was in just a little bit too tough in his races. 2, 3, 4 starts back, even when he won at Parks, was a solid enough first level allowance field. This is a horse that's going to be running at the end at a price.
Yeah, probably. And he's, if nothing else, he's just really consistent. So I think, you have to take that into account with a horse like him. Most of his really competitive races, I would kind of argue, have come against weaker horses than this. So we'll see if he can just sort of pull the right trip and maybe sort of, I feel like he'd have to luck into a win, but he could certainly get a piece of this.
The 7 is Java Buzz, who ran that big speed try 2 starts back. His one and only race going around to ground. He blasted right out to the front and just seemed unmanageable the first quarter of a mile. He settled down a bit. He ran an okay second. They cut him back in distance. He didn't make the lead. Mike mentioned it already. Big long shot won that race. Probably a better field than what he's facing here. I mean, the 4th place finishers come back, kind of been a revelation on dirt. Second with an 89 buyer, first with a 90 buyer. Lone speed, he's going to be a short price. Do you have questions still about his distance ability?
Yeah, I do. Even though he ran fine, obviously 2 starts back, the horse that easily ran him down in that spot did come back and finish second in the Gio Ponte. He's still very lightly raced. I don't know. Listen, is he the horse to beat in here? I guess he is, just because Jace's Solitude, has so many question marks surrounding him. But this horse is not a horse that I can say that I'm in love with, especially going a distance of ground, and he's going to be a really short price.
Duvini, his stablemate, is up next. He'll be a better price, and he has the stalk and pounce ability to sit second or third early. We're going to watch his most recent start, his first race since August. This is at Gulfstream Park, 2 life claimer, and more gutsy than anything else. He was up close to the pace throughout. He just grinds this thing down. Very game to win, Mike, and it looks like he's going the right way for a very good trainer.
Yeah, I'll agree with all that. I mean, I don't really have too much to say about this horse. He gets the job done here off of an absolute perfect trip on a class drop. I wasn't particularly taken with it. I didn't think his prior 2 turf efforts were, anything to get that excited about, but they were against, decent fields at Monmouth. So, I can't say that I'm way against him, Dan. I also didn't really want to bet him if he takes money.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Wednesday race of the day. Mike, Jace's Solitude, if he remembers who he used to be, or is even half of what he used to be, he's supposed to run these horses down in the lane. I'd have to use him in multis.
Yeah, it's the only way that I could look at the race, Dan. I'll be honest with you. I doubt I'm going to be having any money invested in this thing. If I had liked one of the other alternatives, I would have been happy to pick him and take a little shot in here. I just didn't like anybody else in here. I thought it was a fairly straightforward race, and I think he's the best horse. We'll see if he can still run.
It's a fair point. I have concerns about his current form. I have concerns about the morning line favorite's ability to rate and get the distance. So I'm just looking for a wacky long shot. King Alfredo chased a fast pace last time out, was returned to turf. He tired pretty badly. Yes, this is a much better spot. I think a good trip is coming. He's got to be a gigantic price on the board. So I'll take a shot with him over your top pick, Jace's Solitude, who will be running late. 3514 for Mike, 2387 for me. It's a tough race. Our Wednesday race of the day, kicking off the 20-cent Rainbow Six at Gulfstream. Good luck.